Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. Sometimes I think there are places in this world that hold on to pain, places where time folds in on itself and memory leaks through the cracks. We pretend we know how the world works, like we've charted every shadow, labeled every darkness. But we haven't. There are things that wait in the corners, things no camera can catch and no science can explain. I met one of those things 7 years ago, and no matter how many times I tell myself it wasn't real, a part of me still believes it was. I was 25 when it happened. Back then I worked nights as a security officer at McClellan International, just outside of Phoenix. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid all right and offered stability, which was more than I could say for most of the jobs I'd worked before that. I liked the rhythm of the airport, the echo of luggage wheels on polished floors, the low hum of distant announcements. People were always coming or going. It gave me this odd sense that life was moving forward, even if mine felt stuck. My usual shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I shared it with Carlos, my partner. Carlos was older by a decade, a stocky ex-Marine who kept his jokes dry and his coffee darker than sin. We'd take turns patrolling the terminals, share stories during slow hours, and vent about passengers who thought rules didn't apply to them. It wasn't exciting work, but it was honest, and I had never once felt unsafe there, until the man with the sign showed up. The first time I noticed him was a Thursday night in early fall. The air inside was cool, artificial, but it still carried that faint hint of warm pavement from outside. I remember the lighting felt especially yellow that night, like everything was faded just slightly. I was doing my usual pass near the arrival gates when I saw him. Mid-40s maybe, thin, average build. He wore a plain black t-shirt and gray pants, and in his hands he held a small handmade sign that just read Smiley. The name caught me off guard. Not because it was strange, people show up with all kinds of names on signs, but because it felt off. Crooked letters, drawn in black marker on a piece of cardboard like something a kid might make for a school project. Smiley didn't sound like a name so much as a cruel joke, but the man didn't look like he was joking. He was smiling, though. Not a big grin, not one of those over-the-top excited-to-see-you expressions. More like restrained joy. His eyes kept flicking between the escalators and the glass doors, searching every face that walked past like it might belong to someone he'd been waiting decades to see. I stood there for a moment, watching. My first instinct was that it was just a late-night pickup, maybe a nickname from childhood. But the longer I watched him, the more something in me started to itch. He looked fragile, not physically, emotionally, like someone barely holding it together. Still, I let it go. I had rounds to finish and paperwork to close. Besides, he wasn't doing anything wrong. The next night he was there again. Same outfit, same spot, same sign. That alone gave me pause. Most people don't wear the same clothes twice at an airport, especially not if they're waiting night after night. Maybe he was homeless, maybe he'd been stood up. Carlos noticed him too. I asked if he thought it was odd. He shrugged. Maybe the guys just got bad timing. On the third night, something changed in his posture. He wasn't standing tall anymore. His arms drooped. The sign shook slightly in his hands. His eyes looked hollow, like someone had turned off the lights inside him. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I told Carlos I was going to check in on the guy. He nodded and I walked across the polished tile toward him, already rehearsing what I'd say. Something casual, low pressure. Just enough to make sure he wasn't in some kind of crisis. But he wasn't there. Just gone. No sign. No black shirt. No gray pants. Like he'd never existed. I circled the gate area. Checked the bathrooms. Asked a janitor if he'd seen a guy with a smiley sign. Nothing. Not a trace. By the next night, I had half convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Lack of sleep, maybe. Weird tricks of light. But then, there he was again. Like clockwork. Standing in the exact same spot. The sign held high, The smile drained from his face. This time I didn't wait. I approached slowly, hands out, trying not to startle him. "Hey," I said gently. "You've been here a few nights. Is everything okay? Need help finding someone?" He didn't answer. Didn't move. Didn't blink. The air between us shifted. I mean that literally. The temperature dropped. My skin prickled. The background noise, the murmurs, the footsteps, the overhead announcements, all faded like someone had hit mute on the world. My mouth opened to speak again, but nothing came out. A ringing started in my ears, high-pitched, sharp. Then everything tilted. The floor moved, or I did. I couldn't tell. My knees buckled, my chest tightened, and all I remember after that was falling into something heavy and dark. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. White walls, IV drip, monitors beeping. My skull throbbed like I'd been kicked by a mule. Carlos was there, his face pale and eyes wide. 2 officers stood at the foot of the bed, their hands clasped, their expressions unreadable. What happened?" I asked, my throat dry. Carlos looked like he didn't know where to start. One of the officers cleared his throat. "You collapsed at work," he said. "You were unresponsive for a while." Unresponsive. Like a machine. Carlos handed me a tablet. "You need to see this." It was security footage from the terminal. At first I didn't recognize myself. The man in the video was me, sure, same uniform, same haircut. But everything else was wrong. He was screaming. Not words, just raw sound. He tore through people's luggage, flipped over chairs, slammed his fists into a vending machine. His face was contorted with rage. Pure, unfiltered madness. He kept shouting over and over, "This is all your fault, everyone is bad." I don't remember any of it. Not a second. And that terrified me more than anything. The officers didn't arrest me. They didn't even question me much. Just gave me some paperwork, a recommendation to see a mental health professional, and that was it. Carlos didn't look me in the eye after that. I spent the next week holed up in my apartment. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man with the sign. I saw his empty stare. I heard that laughter, except I didn't remember hearing it at the time. Not really. It was like a false memory implanted later. But it rang in my head like it had always been there. I couldn't explain it. Not to anyone. Not even myself. Eventually, I convinced myself it was stress, fatigue, a breakdown, something medical, something rational. I went back to work the following Wednesday. That was my mistake. From the moment I stepped into the terminal, I felt it again, that pressure in my chest, like breathing through wet cloth, like something watching me just outside the edge of vision. I thought maybe it was anxiety, maybe trauma, until I saw him. Same clothes, same spot, same sign. But this time, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him were 2 more figures, a woman and a young girl. I assumed they were his family, his wife and daughter maybe. But their faces, God, their faces were all wrong. The skin around their mouths and eyes was blackened, charred. Their eyes were bulging, hanging low like they'd come unmoored from the sockets. And they were smiling. All 3 of them. A single frozen expression like someone had carved it into their skulls. I couldn't breathe. Their presence filled the air like smoke. I staggered back, heart pounding. Their laughter rose around me, soft at first, then louder. Unnatural, not human. I started praying under my breath. Words I hadn't said since I was a kid. I asked for protection, for release. But nothing stopped it. I turned and ran. I didn't remember getting to the admin office, didn't remember writing the resignation letter. Just remembered the weight of the pen in my hand, the trembling in my fingers. That was my last night at the airport. To this day, I don't know who they were, what bound them there, why they chose me. I've read about hauntings, curses, unfinished business, but nothing fits. Nothing explains the static in the air, the gaps in memory, the rage that took over me like a virus. All I know is that some things in this world aren't meant to be seen. And if you ever find yourself in a quiet airport late at night and you see a man holding a sign that says "Smiley," keep walking. Because some smiles are just masks for something much, much worse. And some people don't wait to be found. They wait to find you. Ask yourself this: if your mind can break so cleanly, how would you ever know it was broken in the first place? People say you get used to exhaustion, that your body finds its rhythm when you're working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, pushing yourself past where your instincts say stop. But that's a lie. Your body might adapt, sure, but your mind starts slipping through cracks you didn't know were there. That's what happened to me. I just picked up a second job to cover my rent, night janitor at the regional airport. My day job at the auto parts warehouse barely paid enough for gas and groceries, and I was 3 months behind on credit card bills. So when the flyer on the community board at the corner bodega said, "Midnight shift, janitorial, easy work, cash weekly," I took down the number without thinking. Easy work, they said. Just keep the terminal clean while no one's around. Simple. I should have known better. I started that job the second week of October. The air was already turning, cold enough at night to see your breath, and the kind of quiet fell over the town that made you notice things you usually didn't. The airport was 10 minutes from my apartment, small enough to be forgotten but big enough to host red-eyes, cargo flights, and private jets. The night manager, Russ, was this guy who looked like he hadn't slept in years. He barely said a word when I met him, just handed me a ring of keys, a clipboard with a checklist, and said, "Don't go poking around near Maintenance C. The door sticks and we've had rats." I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, took the mop, and started with the windows by the departure lounge. That first shift went by quiet. Long, lonely, but nothing strange. You'd think it'd be peaceful, being alone in a building that usually buzzes with announcements and crying babies. But silence at that scale? It starts to feel unnatural. Like sound is supposed to bounce back, and when it doesn't, something's wrong. The third night is when it really started. It was 1:07 a.m. I remember that exactly because I had just checked my phone. I'd finished the lobby and moved on to the central terminal, near the long windows where you could see the tarmac. Planes parked under soft amber lighting. No motion, no staff, just machinery in sleep mode. I remember how strange they looked. Lifeless, but not dead. It was raining outside, just lightly. You could hear it tapping against the glass like fingernails. I was mid-mop, zoning out to the rhythm of my own movements, when I heard something. A laugh. Soft. Female. Distant. But real. I stopped, mop halfway in motion, heart suddenly thudding in my chest. The kind of laugh that doesn't match the setting. It wasn't playful. It wasn't scared. It was amused, like someone watching a private joke unfold. The sound echoed across the walls too easily, like the building was trying to hand-deliver it to me. I called out, "Hello?" My voice came out shaky. "You're not supposed to be in here." No answer. I walked the terminal slowly, flashlight in one hand, mop still in the other. Nothing. Just the occasional flicker of a dying bulb. The laugh didn't come back. I chalked it up to nerves. Maybe a memory glitch in my brain, mixing a TV show I'd watched earlier with the silence of the place. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Around 2:15, I was mopping the far hallway near the restrooms when I heard footsteps. Fast, heavy, running. I spun around. Nobody. The lights flicked off suddenly with a loud, mechanical thunk. I yanked out my flashlight and aimed it forward. That's when I saw her. A woman facing away from me, standing just outside the women's restroom. Shoulder-length black hair, thin arms, motionless, like someone had cut her out of a scene and pasted her into mine. "Ma'am?" I called, trying to sound like someone in control. "You're not allowed back here. I can walk you to the entrance if you're lost." No movement, not even a twitch. I took a step forward. She didn't flinch. Then, without a sound, she moved inside the restroom. I followed. It was a mistake, but I couldn't not. I told myself maybe it was someone homeless, someone confused, but when I stepped inside, the air changed. It was denser, not cold, heavy, like breathing through wet towels. The lights inside flickered. The mirrors were foggy even though there was no humidity. I called out again, soft this time. "Ma'am, I need to make sure you're all right." No reply. One by one, I pushed open the stall doors. Empty, each one, until the last. I opened it slowly, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Empty. No one. I stepped back, shaky, unsure if I'd just imagined it all. I went to the sink, splashed water on my face, looked up at my reflection. I looked dead, pale, eyes wide, skin damp with sweat. And that's when I saw the footprints. Blood. Not dry, not old, fresh. Right across the tiles I had just cleaned, leading out of the bathroom. I followed them. Not because I wanted to, but because some part of me knew I had to. They trailed down the hallway, smeared at the edges but distinct. Human. Bare feet. The stains got thicker the farther I went, like someone had been bleeding more with each step. They led to a service hallway I didn't even know existed. Past the locked check-in counters, past the vending machines, to a single steel door at the end of a narrow corridor. No windows, no label. Just rust at the base and a keypad that blinked but didn't work. The blood stopped there. I stared at the door, shaking. I heard it again. The breathing. Long, raspy inhales. Not mechanical, not distant. Right there, just on the other side. Then a click. The door cracked open, and I saw it. An eye. Enormous, unblinking bloodshot. Weeping red tears down sunken flesh. It didn't blink. It just watched me. Then a hand reached through, bone thin, white, fingernails cracked and bleeding. And then, that laugh again. Closer this time. Right behind me. I turned, but no one was there. I ran. But even as I ran, I heard it. Footsteps behind me that didn't match mine. Faster. Closer. When I reached the lobby, the windows exploded inward. Glass rained down like shrapnel. I hit the floor screaming, covered my head. Then came the cold. Freezing air brushed over me, and I felt a presence crouch beside me. She was there. Her face was mangled, one eye missing, jaw cracked, skin torn like she had been pulled apart and barely stitched back together. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She touched my face, and everything went black. When I woke, Russ was shaking me. The terminal was clean. No broken glass, no footprints, nothing. He asked if I passed out. I nodded. He stayed with me the rest of the shift. I quit the next day. I never told anyone. Who would believe it? But every once in a while, when I pass by that terminal, I swear I see a figure watching from the window. Still, waiting. What do you think she would have done if I had opened that door all the way? There are nights that stay with you. Not because something beautiful happened, but because something inside you split open. Something fragile and human and scared. For me, that night began in a quiet terminal in Milwaukee. But the story starts months earlier, in a small town in rural Indiana, where I was quietly falling apart. At 26, I was out of work and barely keeping the lights on in a cramped, moldy apartment above a defunct hardware store. I'd been laid off from a regional shipping depot when the company downsized and no one in town was hiring. I'd been applying for anything I could find. Remote gigs, warehouse jobs, even seasonal work at garden centers. Nothing stuck. My bank account was a joke, my credit cards were maxed out, and I was dodging my landlord's calls. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email. A startup in Portland, Maine had somehow seen my old resume and liked my experience in logistics and operations. They wanted to meet, in person. The interview was set for February 18th, which gave me 3 days to figure out how to get across the country. I sold my old gaming console, borrowed a little cash from an ex I still talked to occasionally, and bought a red-eye out of General Mitchell International Airport. The flight was cheap and direct. It felt like fate throwing me a rope. That night, February 17th, Milwaukee was locked in a late winter storm. The kind of snow that comes down wet and heavy, then turns to freezing rain so fast it coats everything in a film of glass. I got to the airport early, nerves already tight in my stomach. I hadn't flown in years. I hadn't felt like a person with a future in years. The terminal felt colder than I expected. People were huddled into coats, their faces buried in phones or books, the occasional murmur from someone on a call. Nobody made eye contact. There's a strange loneliness in an airport that late at night, a kind of shared agreement not to speak unless you have to. I found my gate and checked the board. Flight 2186 to Portland. Still on time. 11:37 p.m. I took a seat near the back of the waiting area and tried to look casual, earbuds in, staring at the same playlist I'd scrolled through 20 times already. Every so often I looked up. Maybe 15 of us were waiting. A few families, a couple of businessmen, some students, and two men sitting just across from me. Something about them immediately felt off. One was tall and bald, wearing a denim jacket over a black hoodie. No gloves, no hat, just sitting there with his legs stretched out like he wasn't freezing. The other was shorter, with olive-toned skin, slick dark hair, and eyes that were locked on the muted news screen above the gate. They weren't talking to each other, but they were clearly together. I didn't think much of it at first. People look odd when they're tired. But then someone sat down 2 seats away from me, without a word. That caught my attention. Most travelers spread out if they can, some unspoken rule of personal space. But this guy just slid into the seat like he knew me. He looked mid-40s, heavy-set, wearing a long brown coat that looked like it had been through a few winters too many. His thinning dark hair clung damply to his scalp, and he smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, like rust. What bothered me wasn't how he looked. It was the way he was staring, right at me, like he had been waiting. I turned my head slightly, expecting him to ask something, a question about the flight maybe. But he leaned closer, and I felt the heat of his breath before he even spoke. His voice was low, rough, but certain. "The two men across from you. They're getting on your flight. They're not who you think. Once you land, they plan to take you." My stomach dropped. I blinked, opened my mouth to respond, but he was already standing. He walked away without another word, disappearing down the terminal past gate 17. I half stood confused, then hesitated. That's when the gate agent called for boarding. Flight 2186 to Portland. All passengers, please begin lining up. I looked back at the two men. They were staring at me now. Both of them. The bald one's eyes narrow and sharp, the shorter man's mouth pulled into a faint smile, something smug and knowing. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was nothing. A misunderstanding. A weird guy trying to freak me out. But something in me wouldn't let it go. My legs moved toward the gate before I'd made the decision. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me as I boarded. Inside the plane, I found my seat mid-cabin, aisle seat thankfully. I kept my head low, hoping the two men would sit far away. But as the cabin filled, I heard them, 2 rows behind me, quiet, calm, like nothing had happened. I stared at the back of the seat in front of me, trying to keep my breath steady. My heart wouldn't listen. I told myself I was just tired, anxious. That guy had probably been unwell. Maybe he was some conspiracy nut. But then I remembered the look in his eyes, how certain he had seemed. The plane took off. Outside, the night was a thick, swirling darkness, the kind that pressed against the windows like it was trying to seep in. The flight attendants did their rounds. I took a soda just to have something to hold. I could feel the tension in my back like a wire pulled tight. About an hour into the flight, the cabin dimmed and most people began to doze. I didn't. I couldn't. That's when I saw it. Movement in the aisle. I turned my head slightly. The shorter man was standing, not walking to the bathroom, not grabbing anything overhead, just standing there, looking at me again. I shifted in my seat, stared straight ahead. Ignore him, don't react. That's what I told myself. But then I heard something else. A rustling, another set of steps. The tall one was now beside me. He didn't speak right away, just stood there, looming. Then he leaned in. "Get off the plane," he whispered. His voice was like gravel. "It's not too late, but if you don't leave, you won't be going home." I couldn't breathe. He moved his arm slightly and I saw it, just for a second, a flicker of metal beneath his sleeve. Small, sharp, hidden. Panic bloomed in my chest. Was this real? Was I dreaming? I turned my head fast, looking for help, but the cabin was still, everyone else asleep or pretending to be. I stood. I didn't think. I just moved. I shoved past him and stumbled down the aisle, not stopping, not thinking, just moving. I heard him curse behind me, heard footsteps. I pushed through the curtain toward the galley. A flight attendant turned, startled. "They're trying to hurt me," I gasped. "Two men back there. I don't know them, but they said they're going to take me." She didn't argue. She reached for the phone. "Captain, we've got a situation. We need security waiting when we land." The voice over the intercom was calm, too calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing in Portland shortly. Please remain seated." I didn't go back to my seat. I sat near the galley, watched the door, my fingers shaking. The two men didn't come after me, not visibly, but I could feel them, waiting. We landed. The wheels hit the ground, the brakes squealed, and I thought, maybe that's it. Maybe it's over. But when the door opened and I stepped off into the cold air of Portland, they were there, standing near the terminal doors, not rushing me, not saying anything, just waiting. And this time, I didn't have anywhere to run. So, let me ask you, if a stranger whispered something impossible to you in a quiet terminal one night, would you listen? Or would you brush it off and risk never coming home again? There are moments in life that sit in your memory like glass under skin. You might not touch them often, but when you do, they sting like the day they happened. For me, it always starts with a smell. That strange cocktail of cold recycled air, overused sanitizer, and the faint rubbery tang of a polished airport floor. The scent hits me like a trigger. Even now, all these years later, it yanks me back to that summer night in 2007. I was 10 years old. My name's Tyler. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, a sleepy city bordered by pine forests and wide open skies, the kind of place where you grow up believing bad things only happen somewhere else. We weren't poor, but we were definitely budget-minded. My mom clipped coupons like it was an Olympic event. My dad was the kind of guy who'd drive 15 extra miles just to save $1 on gas. That summer, they pulled off something big, a real family vacation. We were headed to Adventure Kingdom, a massive amusement park in Texas. The plan had been months in the making. Mom kept a manila folder full of travel itineraries, ticket stubs, and laminated maps. Dad found discounted round-trip flights with awkward hours. Our flight out of Phoenix Sky Harbor was scheduled for 12:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. It was supposed to be smart, fly overnight, let the kids sleep through it, save on a hotel night. At the time, it sounded perfect. I remember being too wired to even think about sleeping. I was jacked up on vending machine candy and Mountain Dew, flipping through my Spider-Man comics while my sisters, Laya and June, played some giggly game involving gummy worms and the squeaky vinyl chairs in the terminal. Laya was 8, June was 5. Both were wearing matching t-shirts that read "Texas or Bust" in puffy paint letters. Mom had made them a week earlier. We were at Gate 22A and it was nearly empty. Just a handful of red-eyed business travelers glowing in laptop light and a few scattered families with sleepy toddlers draped across their laps. Everything was dim, quiet, too clean. The kind of late-night stillness that feels artificial, like you're standing inside a paused movie. Mom stood up. scooped June into her arms and said, "Tyler, I'm taking her to the restroom. Laya, stay with your brother, okay?" She didn't wait for confirmation. Dad stretched, yawned, and added, "I'm grabbing a sandwich. Don't move. 2 minutes." Suddenly, it was just me and Laya, alone in the lounge. I was trying to focus on my comic. Laya was chewing on her hoodie sleeve, legs swinging under the seat. That's when I noticed her. A woman sat down beside us, close enough that her perfume hit me before her voice did. Sweet, chemical, artificial cherry. Too strong and too much for the hour. "Hey there," she said like we were old friends. "You two have gotten so big, I almost didn't recognize you." Laya looked at me. I blinked. "Do we know you?" She chuckled like I'd said something clever. "Oh, come on now, your dad didn't say we'd be meeting here?" Her voice was syrupy but strained, like someone trying too hard to be casual. I didn't answer. My hands started sweating. Something felt off. Then the man appeared. Buzz cut, cheap leather jacket, slight limp in his left leg. He walked straight up like he belonged in our story. "There you two are," he said, grinning wide. "Your dad told us to come find you. We're cousins. Remember us? I'm Donnie. This is Marcia." He said it like we were supposed to jump up and hug them. We didn't. We just kind of froze. Marcia held her hand out to me. Donnie reached for Laya. "Come on," he said smoothly. "Car's just outside. Our kids are dying to meet you." I hesitated. Maybe it was some kind of surprise. Adults did weird stuff like that. Maybe there were cousins we didn't know. Maybe. We started walking with them. Slowly. Hesitant. Past the cafe. Past the newsstand. Down the wide escalator that echoed with every step. The woman kept glancing at me, her smile too tight, her perfume growing stronger. I noticed how Donnie kept checking over his shoulder, not enough to draw attention but enough to clock the area. Like he was timing something. Marcia had a backpack slung low, the kind that didn't quite match her scarf or slacks. Too large for a night at the airport. We walked past baggage claim, past the check-in counters, toward the big sliding doors leading outside. That's when I asked, "Where's your car?" Donnie didn't miss a beat. "Right outside," he said too fast. "You'll love it. We got snacks." Marcia added, "The other kids can't wait to see you. Come on, sweetie." I dropped her hand. "I want to go back," I said. Donnie turned around. His smile was gone. "What?" "We want to go back," I said louder. "Right, Laya?" She was silent, shaking. I took her hand from his. Her fingers were ice cold. That's when Donnie lunged. He grabbed my arm like a vice. Marcia snatched at Laya, her nails dug in. "Let us go," I screamed. They didn't. They dragged us toward a dark blue sedan. Its trunk was already open. Inside were bags, a car seat, fast food wrappers. Everything arranged to look normal. "Hey, stop right there!" A voice cut through the lot. 2 security guards sprinted toward us, yellow jackets bright even in the low light. One swung a flashlight like a sword. Donnie shoved me. I hit the pavement. My chin cracked on the asphalt. Marcia let go of Laya. They bolted. Fast. Faster than I thought adults could move. One guard stayed with us. The other chased them, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. "Are you hurt?" the guard asked. I couldn't speak. Laya was sobbing. Her hoodie sleeve was torn. He helped us up. "Where are your parents?" When we got back to 22A, Mom was holding June like she'd never let go. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. His sandwich was on the ground, untouched. "Tyler, Laya," Mom cried, hugging us so tight it hurt. We told them everything. Airport police took our statements. A TSA agent brought us warm water and blankets. The flight was delayed. We didn't care. We huddled together on those uncomfortable chairs, too scared to even blink. They never found Donnie or Marcia. No fingerprints. No plate number. The sedan was gone. The cameras caught blurry figures. Nothing more. Back then, I didn't know what trafficking was, didn't know why adults would lie, or how close we came to disappearing forever. But I know now. And every time I step into an airport, any airport, I still feel it. That cold, that echo, that smell. I look over my shoulder, I keep my distance, and I remember. Would you have known to walk away? People say airports are just places you pass through, checkpoints between where you were and where you're going. For most, they mean fast food, flight delays, and overpriced souvenirs. But for me, airports are something else entirely. I'm not just passing through, I carry something every time I walk through those sliding doors. I carry a memory, one that shadows every step, no matter how many years pass. My name is Ariel. I'm 28 now, and yes, I'm a man, in case the name threw you off. My job takes me all over the world, and I genuinely love it. I spend hours in the air, staring out the window at the vast, quiet sky, away from the noise of everything down here. Flying has always made sense to me, but even after all these years, airports still feel like a test I have to pass. Not because of the lines or the people or the stress, but because every airport smells a little like that one day, that 1 hour that nearly split my life in half. I was 8 years old. We were flying to Italy to visit my grandparents. My dad had saved up vacation days for months. My mom had been collecting gifts to bring over. I was just excited. Excited for the plane, for the pasta, for the stories my grandfather would tell over candlelight. I was a loud, curious kid, the kind who asked 100 questions about where planes went when they disappeared into the clouds. But that day, my mom wasn't herself. She had eaten something weird the night before. She kept disappearing to the airport bathrooms, clutching her stomach, her face pale and drawn. My dad was tired, frustrated, more focused on his phone than anything else. He kept playing this game, some puzzle with bright lights and annoying sounds. I remember asking him if I could play too, just for a minute. He didn't even look up. "Not now, Ariel. Just wait." I waited. Then I got impatient. Angry, really. I wanted attention and I didn't like being ignored. That combination was dangerous. I told myself I'd find my mom. It was a bad idea. A dumb, impulsive kid's idea. But at the time, it made perfect sense. "She's in the bathroom, I'll go there. I know where it is." Sort of. I slipped away. My dad didn't notice right away. The line was long, he was distracted. I remember walking fast at first, then slower, then stopping. I looked around. Everything was too big, too open, too loud. Every direction looked the same. People pulling suitcases, speaking a dozen different languages. No signs made sense to me, no familiar faces, just noise and motion. That was when panic crept in. My mouth went dry. I stood still while the world moved around me. I tried to stay calm, tried to remember what my mom always said. "If you're lost, ask for help." So I did. I saw a couple near a vending machine. The guy had a camera around his neck and the woman was reading a brochure about the Grand Canyon. They looked nice, normal. "Excuse me," I said, barely audible. "Do you know where the bathroom is?" The man looked surprised. Then his face softened. "Sorry, buddy. First time in this place. You okay? You look a little lost." "Yeah," I said, not sure if I wanted to admit it. "I think I got turned around. My mom's sick, she went to the bathroom. I wanted to find her." "Hey, maybe we can help find someone," the woman said. "Airport security, maybe." Before anything else could be said, an older woman appeared. She wore a long wool coat and had her gray hair twisted into a neat bun. Her glasses hung from a chain around her neck. She smiled gently, but something about her presence was too smooth, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "There you are," she said with practiced warmth. "You shouldn't run off like that, sweetheart. You scared us." She turned to the couple. "Thank you for helping. He does this sometimes." The man frowned. "You know him?" Of course, she said, placing her hand on my shoulder. Come along now. We need to find your mother. She's waiting. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and let her guide me away. She smelled like lavender and old paper. Her grip was firm, not cruel, but definite, like she wasn't going to let go. We walked in silence for a few minutes. I looked around, half expecting to see my parents sprinting toward us. Nothing. Just strangers and suitcases. Your name is Ariel, right? She asked. Your father said you were looking for your mom. I nodded. She's sick. She went to the bathroom. Yes, I know. That's why I'm here. Your mom asked me to come find you. How? She paused. What do you mean? How did she ask you? I said. You never used a phone. She chuckled. I suppose I'm just good at noticing when a child needs help. Something in me stirred. A tight feeling in my stomach. Something wasn't right. We walked past a sign pointing toward the restrooms. Wait, I said. Isn't that the bathroom? No, she replied smoothly, never breaking stride. Yours is further ahead, come now. My legs slowed. Hers didn't. Her hand squeezed tighter. Ma'am, I said, my voice small. I think I need to wait here. She didn't stop. Let go, please. I want to go back. Her expression didn't change. Stop it, James, you always do this. James. That wasn't my name. I yanked my arm. She didn't let go. Help, I shouted. Help me. She slapped me. Hard. My ears rang. My vision blurred. She grabbed me again, dragging me through the exit toward a white van. A man stood beside it, tall, pale, with bloodshot eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. What are you doing? He hissed. People are watching. She opened the door, shoved me inside. I bit her hand. She screamed. I ran. He caught me, threw me back. Darkness, screams, then light, noise, hands pulling me out. Strangers, police, my mom, tears, relief. That day never left me. Not really. Not in the way memories fade. It lives in my bones, in the way I flinch when someone grabs my arm too quickly. In the way I scan every exit when I land. In the way I still cry when I remember the sound of that van door slamming shut. It changed everything. It changed how I move through the world, how I trust. I became a watcher, someone who reads faces before words, who keeps mental maps of exits and safe spots in any public space. I don't even realize I do it half the time. It's instinct now. When people joke about being paranoid travelers, I laugh with them. But inside, I'm already counting the steps to security. I'm watching who gets too close. I'm marking who doesn't make eye contact. Because the truth is, that day taught me how quickly the world can shift under your feet. How evil doesn't always come with a mask. Sometimes it comes with a smile and soft hands that smell like lavender. So yeah, I love flying, but I hate airports. And every time I walk into one, I ask myself the same question. What if no one had looked back? I used to believe that distance could heal anything, that oceans could drown memories, that new streets and unfamiliar faces could replace the ones you wanted to forget, that if you flew far enough away, you'd eventually outrun whatever haunted you. I was wrong. When I left Mexico, I wasn't just boarding a plane, I was burying a chapter, one I thought would stay behind, quietly sealed under all the goodbyes. But some things follow you. They slip into your luggage, hide in your spine, wait for the right moment to crawl back out. It was the second week of September when I arrived in the United States. I remember because the leaves hadn't yet turned, and the late summer air was still thick with warmth. I'd never been away from home before. Everything felt strange. The voices, the food, even the way the sidewalks cracked here felt different. But somehow, that strangeness was a comfort. Like I'd finally stepped into the life I used to imagine when I was little, lying on my bedroom floor with a tourist map unfolded in front of me. My name is Valentina, and I came here on a student exchange program. I was one of the lucky ones. My host family lived just outside a quiet college town, and from the beginning, they treated me like one of their own. People smiled here, openly, constantly. It was so different from back home, where people smiled only when they meant it, or when they had something to hide. I didn't realize how tightly I had been holding myself until I saw how easily people let go here. And still, none of it mattered. Because Olivia wasn't here. She was supposed to be. We used to talk about this for hours. Two girls stuck in a small Mexican town with no future, no real way out, building castles in the air. Olivia was the dreamer, the brave one. Her mom died when she was 10, and after that, it was just her and her father, and he was hard, cold, the kind of man whose love felt more like a leash. There were times I'd see her walking home from school, shoulders tight, eyes down. She never talked about what happened behind those walls, but she didn't need to. I saw it. The bruises weren't always on her skin. We made a pact once, during a blackout, sitting on my roof with candles flickering between us. We swore we'd get out together. That one day we'd sit in a real airport, boarding passes in hand, heading somewhere that felt like a beginning instead of an end. I never thought she'd make that real. It was the middle of July when she called me, breathless with excitement. "I did it," she whispered. "Val, I bought the tickets. One for me, one for you." I cried. I don't even remember what I said, just the weight of it. How years of waiting had suddenly turned into something solid. A few weeks later, we were supposed to leave together. She'd meet me at the airport. That was the plan. That was the promise. Only that's not what happened. She arrived late. Not too late, but just enough that I'd started to get jittery. When I saw her walking through the sliding doors, I felt my heart lift until I saw him walking beside her. Her father. He didn't say anything at first. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Heavy, oppressive, like someone had lowered the oxygen in the room. Olivia didn't smile. Her eyes flicked toward me and then quickly away. I knew that look. I'd seen it 100 times before. "Let's grab lunch before you girls take off," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. We sat at one of those dull plastic tables in the food court. I barely touched my food. He stared at me the entire time, not like I was a person, more like I was something crawling across his floor. Olivia didn't speak. She kept her eyes down, hands in her lap. Then he snapped. "Don't you look at me, you brat," he barked, his voice slicing through the air like a whip. Heads turned, my stomach twisted. I didn't even realize I was looking at him. I was just existing, breathing. "You think I don't see what you're doing," he hissed, filling her head with lies, turning her against me. "You want to take her from me, don't you?" I opened my mouth, but Olivia moved faster. She grabbed my tray and flung it at me. Hot noodles, sauce, soda, everything spilled across my shirt in a steaming mess. "You liar!" she screamed. "I trusted you." For a second I couldn't move, couldn't think. My body was frozen. I stared at her, eyes wide, trying to understand what had just happened. But her face, it wasn't hers, not really. It was blank, scared. Her hands trembled. She looked like someone who wanted to scream but couldn't find her voice. "This isn't you," I whispered. "Olivia." Her father stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the tiles. He leaned in close, jaw tight. "You're not taking her from me." That's when I backed away, slowly, cautiously. "I haven't done anything," I said, voice cracking. "But if you touch me again, I'll call security." He lunged. I didn't think. I just ran. My legs moved on instinct, weaving between suitcases and crying children through terminals and food courts. People stared. Some got out of the way. Others didn't even notice. But he was fast. I felt him behind me, his breath, his fury, and then his hands, wrapped around my neck like a vice. The world dimmed. Sound disappeared. I clawed at him, desperate, terrified. My knees hit the floor. I was going to die right there on the airport tiles. That's what went through my mind. That my last moments would be lived in silence with strangers looking on, until chaos erupted. Security stormed in, They tore him off me, tackled him to the floor. He screamed like an animal, his rage unbroken. I coughed, air pouring back into my lungs in violent gasps. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I sat there for minutes, maybe hours. I don't remember. When I finally moved, I reached for my bag. I pulled out the small pepper spray I'd kept since arriving in this country, just in case. I sprayed him, right in the face. He howled, hands flying to his eyes, thrashing on the floor. It gave the guards a better hold. They restrained him, took him away. But not before he looked at me one last time. Wild, vicious, like a curse had been cast in his eyes. Later, Olivia found me sitting alone by gate 19. She didn't run. She didn't cry. "You ruined everything," she said quietly. "He's going to jail now. Because of you." My mouth opened, closed. I couldn't speak. "You saw what he did," I finally whispered. "He tried to kill me, Olivia. You provoked him." Her words were like ice water, sharp, unforgiving. "I didn't do anything." "You always do," she snapped. "You act like you're better, like you know more. You were trying to take me away from him." She walked away after that, just turned and left. No hug, no goodbye. I never saw her again. I messaged, I called, she never replied. Weeks passed. I started school, I made friends, smiled, laughed. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Not the Olivia I grew up with, but the one who stood in front of me, blank-faced and broken. I used to think she betrayed me, but now I'm not sure. I think maybe she just broke in a way I didn't understand. And still I wonder, how do you save someone who thinks the person hurting them is the only one who truly loves them? Or maybe the better question is, what would you have done if it were your best friend? Would you have stayed? Or would you have walked away too? They say there's a first time for everything. Your first kiss, your first heartbreak, your first time seeing something you were never meant to see. I used to laugh at ghost stories. I used to roll my eyes at late-night horror podcasts and all those YouTube thumbnails screaming about paranormal sightings and haunted places. Made-up drama. Just noise to break the boredom. I believed in bills. In broken air conditioners and overdraft fees. In having to ration a box of instant mac and cheese across 3 days. I believed in the real stuff, the kind that kicked you when you were already down. My name's Ryan Carter. I'm 21 years old, a business management major at Ravenwood Community College. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like old carpet and bleach no matter how many candles I light. My mom waits tables at that old diner off Lincoln, and she's been running doubles ever since Dad walked out when I was 9. We don't talk about him. Not because it's painful, but because there's just nothing to say. He left. She stayed. That's all there is. College isn't some grand adventure for me. It's a necessary evil. A stepping stone, hopefully. My classes are stacked and brutal. Textbooks are highway robbery. And my part-time job is what barely keeps me above water. That job? Ramp agent at Ravenwood Regional Airport. It's not glamorous. Most folks don't even know what it means. Basically, I handle luggage and cargo on and off small commercial and charter flights. Sometimes it's regular stuff. Suitcases, boxes of medical supplies, mail. Sometimes it's less normal. Shipments labeled with vague words like restricted or confidential. I never asked. We weren't paid enough for curiosity. Nights were better. Less foot traffic, slightly higher pay, and it worked around my class schedule. Plus, my crew was decent. Mark was the loudmouth veteran, late 20s, always cracking jokes but sharp when it mattered. Ethan was new like me, barely 20, looked like he still got carded for PG-13 movies. And then there was Mr. Collins, our shift supervisor. Gray-bearded, chain-smoking, wore the same oil-stained hoodie every night like armor. Gruff, tired, but surprisingly protective of his team. This all started on a Friday night in October, the kind of night that feels like it's holding its breath. The forecast was clear earlier, but by sunset, Thick clouds had rolled in like they meant business. I remember stepping off the shuttle bus around 10:20 p.m. and catching the smell of wet concrete, sharp and metallic. Ozone. "Looks like we're in for it," Mark said, glancing up at the sky as he leaned against the cargo cart. "One more flight and we're home." "Cargo run from Nashville," Ethan muttered, scrolling through the manifest on his tablet. "ETA 11:05, should be quick." I was dead on my feet. My day had started at 7 a.m. with a hellish lecture on market analytics, followed by 2 back-to-back group presentations. My body was running on vending machine coffee and anxiety. But the thought of being done soon, of grabbing a stale gas station sandwich and collapsing into bed, kept me upright. The plane landed at exactly 11:05. A small twin-engine Beechcraft, its white paint job gleaming under the blinking floodlights even as the rain started. First, just a drizzle. Then it turned fast, the kind of rain that hits you sideways, soaks through everything, and drowns out your own thoughts. We pulled the ramp into place, popped the cargo bin, and got to work. There wasn't much, a few crates labeled biosupplies, 3 plastic tubs with those fragile stickers slapped all over them, and 1 large white box, long, almost coffin length, and printed on the side in cold black lettering, "Human remains, handle with care." It wasn't the first time. Bodies got shipped home all the time, some for burial, others for medical study. Still, it never sat right with me. I looked at the box and felt something in my chest twist, a quiet instinct, almost like static under the skin. "First one?" Mark asked, catching my expression. I nodded. "They don't bite," he said, giving me a half smile. "Unless you open the box, then you're on your own." I laughed, but it was weak. Ethan looked even worse, glancing at the rain nervously. "I'll take throw," I offered, meaning I'd climb into the belly and pass the cargo out. It was wet and cold, but I didn't want to be near that box. Mark fired up the conveyor belt, and I climbed inside. The metal walls were cold and slick. Rain hammered the outside like fists. Lightning strobed the sky, painting everything in ghost light. I started moving the crates, one by one, slow, methodical, but I kept my distance from the box. Every time the belt stuttered, I flinched. My chest was tight, like something unseen was pressing against me. Then the plane rocked, just a little, enough to knock me forward, palms slapping the floor, a sharp jolt in my ears. My head spun. I looked up and froze. The box, the long white box, its lid was gone. It had slammed against the far wall, resting in a puddle of condensation. And inside, something shifted. I blinked hard, told myself I was tired, that my eyes were playing tricks. But then it moved again. A slow, jerking twitch, right in the center, where a chest should be. I scrambled back. "Mark! Collins!" I shouted, my voice cracking. Their footsteps pounded up the ramp. Mark's head appeared in the opening. "What? What is it?" "It moved," I stammered. The thing in the box. It moved." Mark's face was skeptical, until he looked inside. He climbed in, flashlight in hand, shined it into the box, and saw it. The bag twitched. He stumbled back, muttering, Nope, that's not right. Collins." Mr. Collins appeared, puffing hard, annoyed, until he looked inside. "Both of you out, now." We didn't argue. He climbed in, alone. Then silence. A long, horrible silence cut only by the thunder, until we heard the scream. Not his. Not human. Something ripped. Something sharp, like wet plastic splitting under too much weight. Collins burst out, white as a sheet, a cigarette dangling from his lips, hand trembling. "Call it in," he said. That's all. Airport security showed up fast. Operations staff. Flashing lights. Walkie-talkies hissing. They cordoned everything off. Took statements. I kept my mouth shut except to say it had moved. That was all. Later, someone leaked a few details. The shipping manifest was a fake. The remains were fresh. No embalming. Just zipped up and shipped out. Officially, it was a mishandled biological transport. But unofficially, theories flew. Some said it was mob-related. Others whispered about cults outside Nashville. Someone even claimed it wasn't human. I put in my 2-week notice the next day. I don't work night shifts anymore. Not ever. And I still don't believe in ghosts. But I believe some things don't want to be transported. Some things don't stay dead. And some boxes should never be opened. So let me ask you, if you saw it twitch, would you still go looking inside?